How the heck are you guys? Welcome to the channel. I am Fastidious, and as you can see behind me, we are doing a good old-fashioned tier list today. We are here on the Tier Maker website, and one of my mods, Death, has put this tier list template together for me. So this is for the War Divine Pick banner, and what we're going to do with this tier list is place all 74 potential pairings with Lyra, actually 73 because you can't put Lyra with Lyra, but all 74 normal heroes in this game are going to be going into this tier list. Now, what is the Choice Divine Summoning? Well, essentially, this is your typical 20x Legendary Summoning Crystal banner. One of the heroes has been chosen for us. It is Lyra, and then tomorrow, when it goes live, you get to choose the other hero. So I will be rating the best choices to pair with Lyra, and we're going to throw all these guys into this huge list here. Now, tier 0, these are the absolute best choices. Tier 1, these are top tier choices. It slightly depends on your account. Tier 2, these are niche choices. Certain accounts, they'd be good choices. Otherwise, no. And finally, we have don't choose. In the don't choose tier, there will be a lot of variety. There will be heroes like Azor, who is dog water and should never be chosen, and there will be good heroes like Zelatu or Valkyria, who are really good, but not good choices for something like this. They're not to that level. Finally, we have this final tier here, D. I know I said finally with the don't choose. This is a tier I asked Death to remove, but I think he forgot. So we're just going to use this tier to place Lyra, since obviously Lyra cannot be placed with Lyra. And I don't know, something about Lyra makes me think of D. So good enough, right? Okay, this is going to take a while, so let's hop right in. Some of these picks are going to be super fast. Abomination, don't choose. Lyra, she goes in the D tier. Other ones have a little bit of nuance. As you can see, these units are ordered alphabetically. So without further ado, let's start with our A's. Let's click presentation mode, and let's begin.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
All right, we quickly put in Abomination as an example, an obvious don't choose unit. He is not the worst character in the game, but he should not be chosen for something like this. And then we've placed Lyra in the Lyra tier. The whole point is you cannot pair Lyra with Lyra, and you do in fact have to choose someone to pair with her. You do have to make a choice for this Divine Summoning banner. So let's soldier on. Immediately a pretty hard one. Aerys typically for me would go in tier 2, kind of a niche pick. Very, very good AoE damage. He actually has the strongest AoE magic DPS of any fighter in this game. I saw some trolls on Discord pushing back on this, saying Valyriia is better. Yeah, I made a lot of qualifications, but I said fighter. She might feel like a fighter sometimes, but Valyriia is not better because she's not a fighter. She's a tactician. If it was melee DPS AoE magic hero, then without a doubt, Valyriia is the best by a mile, as I said in my Aerys video last week, but for pure fighter, it's gonna be Aerys. That being said, a lot of people can do the role, and he literally just had a rate up last week, so we will be placing him in the don't choose tier. But for anyone watching this in the future, just know he would have been tier 2, but he literally was on rate up last week, so no shot. Now, here's a very interesting one. Allora, one of the absolute worst characters on this entire list. However, she does have a very specific niche use for a very endgame thing. If you are struggling with 324, she is not required, but she is going to be the most common solution for the right side. She still needs completely endgame god tier gear. Very likely she will need her exclusive bangle. Very likely she'll need her exclusive artifact. And very likely her DPS will still not be good enough. However, for some of you, picking up an Allora or an A3 Allora actually might be worth it still, so we'll place her in tier 2. I'm not going to do anything in order. We'll just place these guys as they show up. However, I will make it a point at the end, if I remember, to put Allora at the bottom of tier 2, because she really does suck. Now we've got Anai. Anai has one of the greatest pieces of exclusive gear in the entire game. She's going to boost damage taken from burning, not just burning she places, but anyone places. She's very, very clutch in those extremely niche scenarios where you need damage over time, particularly burning, but those scenarios are extremely niche, and there are many, many other solutions. The only thing she's meta or close to meta for in the entire game is going to be the Arbiter of Frost Codex, and there are a lot of solutions to that now. There is no reason you should ever choose her. Absyn, we don't have to discuss. Ares now, this is going to be a borderline one. Believe it or not, I do think I will place him in the don't choose tier. He is really good and was very briefly extremely meta for Abyss 1 as your tank. He provides exceptional physical damage vulnerability at 30%. It's the best in the game. He also has 100% uptime on a very good defense break. The vulnerability is not 100% uptime, but the defense break is. That being said, there are enough other good tank options now with Erlong Shen, A1 Magmus, stuff like that, that I don't think you could justify picking him for one specific piece of content the way you actually probably could for Allora or an Allura Awakening, depending on your account. Next up, we've got Arrogance. Arrogance is very, very, very good. I have an Arrogance testing video coming out soon. I'm going to put him in tier 2. That's because the only reason you should be picking him right now, actually, there's a couple quick reasons. The only reasons you should be picking him are, one, you think he's really cool and you want him on your team. You would be correct. He is insanely cool. He's one of the most versatile DPS for a huge breadth of content in the entire game. Number two, you know that it was just confirmed he is getting a buff. So you're speculating that you want that copy because he's going to be really good once he gets his buff. Or you want another awakening, maybe you want A3 or A5, something like that. And finally, number three would be you're progressing through the game and you have a bunch of other stuff, but you're missing a good universal fighter. I still don't know if I could advise him at this point, though he is definitively a higher tier hero in this game. Before the buff, though, as it stands right now, when there are units like Neza out there, it is hard to justify Arrogance. That all being said, he is one of the best progression units in the game. So younger accounts, I think it's worth throwing him in tier 2 and at least articulating that he is a choice. Now, we've got Artemis. This is a tricky one because if it was last week and we did not yet have the Zealous buff, it's pretty likely Artemis would be right here. But with the Zealous buff now, Artemis is no longer definitively always the best anti-heal hero for a lot of content in the game. That being said, I do think he's incredibly strong. I do think he's a really cool solution to things like Gear Raid 1 and Gear Dungeon 1. So for that reason, I will put him in tier 2. Next up, we have Ailen. Ailen is definitively tier 1. Tier 0 is going to be saved just for the absolute craziest, most OP units in the game, but Ailen is just one tick off of that. She's borderline tier 0. Maybe I'll bump her up later in the video. I don't know. But essentially, we need healing for endgame content now. It used to be any healer could do the healing, so a good healer was a healer with a lot of support, a lot of buffing, non-healer components to their kit. Nowadays, we need a lot of healing for a lot of stuff, and no hero in this game has better AoE healing than Ailen, and frankly, it's not even freaking close. So she's borderline. We're going to see how these tiers shake out. She's somewhere between tier 1 and tier 0. Azor is indeed an ass. Soar. Beatrix is just phenomenal. She's going to be tier 1. Hard carry for progression. One of the top 5 progression units in the game right now. I'm talking about younger accounts. Completely excellent AoE DPS. She also just recently got an AI update, like a little optimization, so those summons should navigate the maps even better. She is really strong. Excellent in Gear Raid 1, excellent in Gear Dungeon 1. She's going to be absolutely top tier in the Matrix boss, Zerbis, when that comes almost assuredly with the next update. This is the new guild boss. Her AoE abilities are just phenomenal. That is going to be Beatrix. Now, our first tier 0 of the day. Anyone that knows me knows how much I like Bubba. Beelzebub has aged like the finest of wines. Believe it or not, some people thought it was a poor take that he was a top tier unit when he came out, and I said he was a must summon, and look where we are now. What an actual god in this game. So much debuffing, so much crowd control. He even is healing after his buff a couple months ago. He obviously has completely phenomenal inspiration. He has a displacement skill. The cultists are becoming more and more meta. He is going to be a must-use meta unit if you have him for the new boss, Zerbis and Matrix, and he helps you in so much content that we already have in the game. I know some people are going to say he's only good now because of his buff, and that is the biggest lie I've ever heard in my life. He's specifically better in one piece of content because of his buff, Gear Aid 1, and he already would have been top tier and meta relevant there. With his buff, he did earn the ability to give healing to cultist allies and to give AoE damage reduction to cultist allies, but this is not something required for a lot of content. It's great that it's there, but it just took a top tier broken unit to another level. He is phenomenal. Simple one for the next is going to be Bereus. Excellent damage, excellent anti-heal, phenomenal freeze. Bereus is such a versatile mage, one of the best in the game. The only reason he's not tier 0 is you need to be able to freeze stuff for him to be exceptional. And with a couple recent additions to the game, and some other magic DPS units, you can imagine whom I'm talking about. His DPS is still excellent, but it's not super duper top tier. So combine the fact that his DPS is very good, but not top tier, and he needs to be able to freeze stuff, and there's a lot of content where you can only slow enemies, you cannot freeze them. He can't be in tier 1, but he is awesome. Now we're going to get Brokier. He's going to go here in tier 2. This is not to say he's like a tier 2 quality unit. Remember, these are all rankings based on how good each one of these heroes are as a choice to pair with Lyra for the Choice Divine Summoning banner we have starting tomorrow. And basically, I just think a tank is a tough choice. Brokier is a phenomenal tank, for certain things the best or second best tank in the game, but that all being said, at the end of the day, he still is a tank, unless you're already in possession of all the top tier 0, tier 1 DPS and supports and healers and stuff like that. I think this is a hard pick to justify, but if you got a bunch of other stuff and you just need a crazy tank, you've got a crazy tank right there in Brokier. Callista now, there is no shot, do not choose here. Then we've got Calypso, who also you should not choose. There are so many good marksman options in the game right now, but I do want to shout out that so many people sleep on her DPS. For her to be at full potential, she does need A5, which is kind of crazy, but if you do have A5 Calypso, please consider using her. My A5 Calypso, I use every time there's new event content because she can just spam things so mindlessly with her auto ult, then getting her 5 seal stones up, and she's just like a machine gun in certain content. And I'll also shout out for my 323 clears. She was an absolutely key DPS in the middle, and I needed her to get the clear on my account. So don't pick her, but just know she's going to be better than almost every other unit in this don't choose tier. Kind of like Aerys. Aerys would be a little bit above. Again, he's only here because he was just on rate up. But aside from him, Calypso by a mile is the best unit here right now. Also, as I say it, I am going to put Aerys here in tier 2, and that's just going to be because, yeah, he was just on rate up, but if you didn't get him and you still feel like you need him, and that's the key thing you're missing, you need that kind of DPS for the upcoming Matrix, for the top of Gear Dungeon 1, for Conqueror, for Gear Aid 1, we'll put him there in tier 2 as a niche pick. But just know he's no Arrogance or something, at least for a lot of accounts. We'll see what Arrogance is like post-buff. Cerberus, the damage is underrated nowadays, but it is shockingly niche, and for that reason, he goes in don't choose. Constance is borderline, phenomenal inspiration, but frankly, we've got a lot of inspiration units at this point in the game. She's less unique than she used to be. I will sneak her into tier 2, and that's just for people that maybe aren't that deep into the game, but do have Praetus and love running Arbiter comps. Constance will take your Arbiter comps to the next level. Outside of that, she is, you know, the best melee inspiration unit in the game. Is she still the only one? She might be the only definitive one. So could be a specific good pickup for certain accounts, but obviously not going to be top tier. Now we've got Cratch over here, and Cratch obviously is going to go and don't choose, but I will say he probably will get some play in the Matrix boss. He is particularly good for that fight. No, the DPS is not that special, but his range, Beatrix's range, those weird ranges actually do fit in pretty nicely. This is kind of unfortunate. It was hard for Death to make all these portraits fit nicely. I just appreciate him so much doing this, but you'll see units like Trusk, Talon, and then here Drealen. They're getting their heads clipped off. But just so you know, this is Drealen. I mean, Drealen has the best suite of reductions in her kit in the game. She has the best package of reductions. She has normal damage reduction, she has AoE damage reduction, and she has her very unique final damage reduction. She's completely phenomenal. She also can give shields to everyone she excess heals with her ultimate. And as you're going to see, shields are going to become more and more meta. They're trying to push a northerner meta on us, and shields are going to be a big way they make us do that. Drealen already is just top tier. She's used in so many things outside of just amazing stuff you see in Abyss 1. She's a hard carry for so much content. An easy to use unit in almost every piece of content, just like Beelzebub. I will also shout out her A1 is completely and utterly insane. Her range goes from a diamond when she ults to Ailen range, which is just so much better for sneaking people into her range, where she gives them her phenomenal buffs and support abilities and stuff like that. And also she gives a very good and very steady damage boost. So completely phenomenal. Edith, some people will think she's going to be tier 2 because she's so good for the bottom lane in Gear Dungeon 2. There is no way. If that's the only thing you need, we have other options at this point. Magda can be a sweaty person that works. Callista can be a sweaty hero that works. Obviously, Valara could work if you're lucky to have her. But honestly, Borit is phenomenal at it. So is Edith better than Borit for Gear Dungeon 2? For your first clear, yes. Once you have autos, I'd say Borit is still better, but obviously your first clear is what matters the most. But the fact that a rare that you get for free on day 1 of the game can do it, in my opinion, disqualifies Edith, because she's just not useful for anything else right now. Obviously, Eloin is tier 0. She's got the global map-wide rage regeneration. It is just her and Ireless that have that. But with Eloin, she has so much more as well in her kit. That's the one similarity between those two. Then they branch off and become extremely powerful units in their own right in the different things they do. She has multi-target heals, AoE heals. She has her summoner heals through the Wood Elf, which are so phenomenal. She has cost regeneration through the Wood Elf, which is so clutch and so many people underrate. And finally, she, of course, has cleansing. So very, very good. Ezra now, very underrated healer, but obviously he is in the don't choose. He is not the kind of unit you're targeting with this banner, but worth a shout out to say he's a lot better for a lot of things than people think. Feneris, he might get some glow in the upcoming Matrix boss, but as it stands now, he is so far from the meta, it is crazy. He would be an insane choice for this banner. Now we've got Pharisee. Pharisee's going to be tier 1, even though there are other ways now with Drealen and Narissa to get AoE damage reduction in this game. It is still very rare, and Pharisee brings it in one of the most consistent ways possible, giving it to everyone in his big range. His heals are also very underrated. His normal single target heals, and then his big burst heal when he ults. His inspiration is a little underrated. It is not as good as many of the other heroes in this game, but it is there, and it will help you. All in all, Pharisee is still very relevant. Definitely a tier 1 unit. Now we've got Glacius. A lot of people sleep on his DPS, but that being said, he's a single target mage who is not tippy top tier. So there is no way he will be in tier 2. He has to be in don't choose. Now we've got Hotsit. Hotsit is borderline here between tier 0 and tier 1. I am going to put her in tier 0 just because of how strong and unique she still is. She still gets play in anti-air arena and AoE arena and even some GVG at very, very, very high levels. She's got all that covered. And then obviously in PvE, she's one of the hardest carries in the game. In my opinion, she's the most important character to the best solution in the game for Gear Dungeon 2. And then for everything else, she's just great. Phenomenal in Gear Aid 3 progression, very viable in basically every other piece of content. She's still the easiest solution and the easiest to build solution in the game for Gear Aid 2 up until stage 21. Everything about Hotsit is still pretty dang relevant, though she is no longer a no-brainer, top 5 triple S unit like she used to be. Maybe she's more like a top 10 normal unit, something like that. All right, we're making progress. It looks like we've got a ways to go, and we do, but we're making progress, and you can see we're going fast here. Helga, very good stuns. The DPS is okay, especially if you have her exclusive. You got to build her really fast, but she's not special for anything really right now. She's good in APOC 2. You can use her in the middle in Gear Dungeon 2, but all in all, please don't choose her. Now we've got Hex. Hex is kind of borderline, but I am going to put him at tier 1. You'll see I'm using tier 0 for just the tippy top units. It might surprise some people that I've got like Drealen above Hex, but to that I say, I hope you pull Drealen and get to users, so you understand why I have her above Hex. I will say if I had to put this in order, he'd be up top with Ailen right there. But yeah, he needs his exclusive artifact to be at top potential. If you want him at super top potential, he needs his exclusive weapon as well. But all in all, The damage is crazy. It is very good magic damage, very good single target. It is very viable for a lot of content. He is part of the reason that single target mages like Glacius are less relevant, because you have a marksman like Hex out there just doing their job better in a lot of cases. Excellent kit, phenomenal, amazing with bosses. I would say he's only not tier 0 because as it stands right now, I think he's just off the meta in the end game. You're actually not seeing him much at all in Abyss 1 for like top scores, but obviously for everything else, he's just fantastic. Yuri is very tough. She's somewhere between tier 1 and tier 2. I think, this is hard to do. She's end of tier 1, beginning of tier 2, even though I'm not putting them in order. We'll drop her in tier 1 for now while I explain her kit. She is still the best off-meta solution in the entire game to anti-air arena if you don't have all the wackiness that comes with Lady Alex or Valara, stuff like that. She is really phenomenal. She's very underrated in bosses, though she's not top tier in my opinion. She's unbelievable for progression, but that's more of an early mid-game thing. And then the final pro in her favor is that she is going to give a pretty good bond skill, very relevant if you've got like A5 Kagiri, but she gives quite a nice bond skill to Kagiri. That all being said, she's going to be tier 2. Obviously a niche, potentially relevant choice, but not a top tier choice for the spanner. One unit who is a top tier choice is going to be Ireless, and actually as I put her there, we've got to put Ailen there as well. I've been waffling on it the whole time, but if you don't have Ailen, like you need Ailen. So it's kind of specific because you're going to need a bunch of other stuff to justify making her your top choice, but it's less stuff than you think, just because there's no other consistent AoE healing in this game, and certainly nothing on the level of Ailen. Speaking of Ireless though, she gives the same map-wide passive rage regeneration to your entire team that is deployed, just like Eloin, however with her Serene Breath, and then with her Serene Breath, 2 units get double potency, passive rage regeneration, 2% per second. This obviously is dependent upon who has Serene Breath, and with a lot of content that's hard to control, but in certain content it's not. So in Arena, she's completely top tier, and for PvE in general, if you just want the rage regeneration, she's at least as good as Eloin. She's just crazy. And then the final thing, the clutch things in her kit, there are a few, but the main one I want to point out is going to be her stored up burst heal that she puts out. I think it's called Healing Prayer with her ultimate, and it is insanely clutch, and it's very relevant for progression and for endgame content. Ireless is absolutely excellent. Now we have got Valkyria, and Valkyria is like the definition of a unit that just misses tier 2. She's going to be in the don't choose tier. That is not to say she's bad at all. She's so much better than so many of these guys. It's just, we've got a decent chunk of AoE magic DPS in the game right now. We really do, out of melee units specifically. You know, the introduction of Valara, the increased presence of Magda, and then obviously the recent buff to Aerys and him just being on rate up. It's just hard for Valkyria to feel as special as she used to be. Also, for certain things, arbiters are less relevant than they used to be, so she doesn't shine as much in that respect either. She's still phenomenal. If you ever pull her, you should be excited. If you ever pull dupes, you should be excited, but I don't think she's a unit you choose for the spanner. Shockingly, Kai is potentially. I'm going to put him down here in tier 2. Kai, post-buff, and I've been saying this the whole time, a lot of people think I hate Kai. I hated the old Kai. He was the worst hero in the game, or at least my least favorite legendary in the game. But the new Kai got a buff, deals a lot more consistent damage, puts down a lot more consistent traps, and then most importantly, through his eradication protocol, after he launches a cluster projectile with his ultimate, for the subsequent 15 seconds, all marksman allies, not piercer allies, any marksman ally, all of them are going to have their damage boosted against airborne units by 20% at max skill ups. And this comes in very, very clutch in Gear Aid 3. You can also make good use out of it in Furious Torrent and probably future content, but frankly, where it stands right now, Gear Aid 3 is definitely the hardest Gear Aid to get 22 through 24. Those stages are very, very difficult, and Kai is insanely clutch. So he's obviously a niche choice, obviously not super top tier, but he is someone that certain players could justify picking in this choice divine summoning. Up next, we have got Comet, and Comet is great. I'm going to put Comet here in tier 2. He's kind of fallen off in that basically all he does, besides a little tiny bit of curse, Basically, all he does is deal really good AoE magic DPS as a platformer, and a lot of units can do that now, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that he does deal really good AoE magic damage. So if you're specifically missing that, if you have a bunch of other stuff and you love Comet, he is someone you could choose. Someone you couldn't choose is going to be Kza, and frankly, another one you would never choose is going to be Kza. Kza at A5 does still get some play in GVG. I don't know if that's as meta as it used to be, but it is still relevant. But that means you need her A5. You want to accidentally get her A5 over time. You do not want to be seeking it out. Kza still needs a huge buff. Now we've got Crowdor. We cannot put a tank in tier 0, tier 1, or tier 2 unless they're absolutely top tier and they are bringing some other special stuff to the table, and that just is not Crowdor. Crowdor is absolutely fine. I think he gets a bad rap, like he sucks. He doesn't suck, but he's just a good tank, and that is not enough. Someone now who absolutely does suck, though, without exception, is Lycier. And if there was an E tier or an F tier, that's where he would go. I think he's got a real claim to be the worst legendary in the game right now. Lycier is crap. The next one, though, Lord Phineas. This is a very good hero, but this is a very interesting situation, and let me explain why. If we pop the game open right now, when I logged in today to film this video, you'll see they have just unveiled that on September 22nd, this coming Monday at the time of filming, they are doing a Lord Phineas exclusive artifact shard assembly event. We've had shard assembly events for exclusive artifacts several times in the past, and every single time they have done that, over the duration of that event, that shard summoning exclusive artifact event, we have gotten a banner for that hero whose artifact is featured. So this right here 100% guarantees either next weekend or the weekend after, we are getting a Lord Phineas banner. So for that reason, he is in the don't choose because he's about to get a rate up. So it just doesn't make sense. That being said, though, he would have been in tier 2 otherwise. But he's literally, there's no way in the next 2 weekends after this one, he won't get a banner based on what we know. Now, someone who definitely will make tier 2 is going to be Lucius. A little bit niche, maybe a lot of bit niche, but he is really, really good. If you need dispels, you can ult with him. If you need damage, never ult with him. There's a bit of RNG, but if you're not ulting with him, you are going to trigger pursuits, which are going to trigger damnation stacks, which eventually will trigger his kind of alternate ultimate called Demonic Embrace, where he becomes one of the strongest platform DPS in the game, full stop. If he wasn't in a faction as meta as Watchguard, probably he would be on the cusp, you know, like someone like Valkyria, but just missed tier 2. But because he's Watchguard, because if you use him strategically, the damage is ridiculous, he does have to make tier 2. He is excellent for damage in Abyss 1. He's excellent for damage and utility in APOC 2, and he's very good for progression. So he's going to go there in tier 2. Definitely niche, but definitely still a good choice. Now in tier 0, we're going to place Lynx. Just kidding. Absolutely useless. Please skip her. In tier 2, though, we are going to place Magda. So Magda is basically a better version of Valkyria. Their damage is pretty similar, but in Magda's case, she gets pushback, which is not incredible, but it is a nice bonus. She is in a more relevant faction for her kind of kit, for that kind of content. You know, she is an AoE unit and she's in the AoE faction as a cultist. And then most importantly, her passive is crazy strong. The damage boost and penetration boost she gives to all adjacent allies plus allies in her attack range is wild, and it is a game changer. Magda is a fantastic unit for a lot of stuff, and obviously completely and utterly top tier for Gear Raid 1 stage 24. So she's gonna come in here in tier 2. She's borderline tier 1 in my opinion. I'd say of this group right now, the biggest like outliers, the ones who would be at the top, and let me actually put them in that order now, it would be like Magda and Arrogance. These guys are way, way up top. All right, let's continue on. Magmus, kind of the same story as Ares. He's only really relevant for one thing, and actually in Magmus's case, he needs a 1. We've got a couple options now. He cannot be one of the units you choose. Malric, I think he gets a slightly worse rap than he deserves just because a lot of people overhyped him. when he's just mid, but he is just mid. He's not bad, he's just mid, and he's weird. He's probably going to get a huge buff in the future because his kit just doesn't really make sense. There you go, Malric, do not choose him. Now we've got Malvira. She's somewhere between tier 1 and tier 2. I'm not going to keep doing things in order. I'll just keep going alphabetical. Actually, not even alphabetical, because randomly Valkyria and Yuri were way higher in this list, but I'm just going to keep going down the list, and you'll see Malvira will put in tier 2. She's probably close to tier 1. She has one of the most well-rounded kits in the game, but at the end of the day, she is a tank, and without bringing crazy additional like support and boosting for her allies, like someone like Drealen does, I can't justify having a tank, I think, higher than tier 2 without that. Really good, though. Really, really, really good. She just got a buff, so especially with Awakenings, she'd be even higher. And I will say with new content, she might rise higher and higher and higher because her base kit is just so strong and there's so much in it. Ma, he is an actually useless hero for deploying him. His only purpose in this game is giving BP for GVG. But at this point, I mean, you're not soul stoning Ma. So you're probably using your Urdins and your Jiras and stuff like that. You know, your ancient exclusive lords like Yovar and Ingrid. There's no world that Ma is relevant to you and you should ever target him. If somehow you have a few copies and you use those copies for GVG BP, or you've crunched them all into one and you've got one very high awakening for BP and GVG, sure. But yeah, don't seek it out. Now we've got Micah, very, very mid. She goes right there and don't choose. And we've got Kza, the opposite of mid. Completely and utterly ridiculous. He joins Hotsit as one of our only 2 DPS right now in tier 0. Kza, in my opinion, is the single best progression DPS in the entire game. And then, though his uses become a little bit more specific, he is absolutely top tier for endgame content as well. I think he's underrated as a single target DPS. Maybe you don't know this. For Abyss 1, if you don't have A3 Sun Wukong, Kza is better. He's better than A0, A1, and A2 Sun Wukong. He's also better than A0, A1, and A2 Kagiri. He is pretty usable as a single target, and then obviously as an AoE, he is amazing. He is very good in PvP, and he is mind-numbingly good in any PvE AoE content. And I'll tell you, he's only going to get more popular once Matrix comes out, once the new Zerbis guild boss arrives, because for the physical damage mode, there's a magic mode and a physical mode. He will be extremely meta and extremely dominant. Now we've got Nerissa. This is tough. Is she tier 0 or tier 1? Looking at the other healers here, she's like just so close. She's better than Pharisee, obviously, but I don't think she's better than Eloin or Ireless. And for pure healing, she's not as good as Ailen. But because she brings so much and because she's so meta for so many endgame things, maybe not so many, but she's so meta in the endgame things she excels in, I do think I'll put her here. Just phenomenal in Guild Boss 1 and Guild Boss 2, obviously Abyss. She's going to be insanely good in the Zerbis boss. I think a lot of people will be doing something like Ailen, Ireless, and Nerissa, at least until they nerf that stage or we find out a new way to keep your tank alive. She's really phenomenal. You can see I have a soft spot for healers, I guess, for supports, but these super top tier supports are few and far between, and a lot of them have no true substitution. So there she goes. Now we've got Nocturne. Nocturne is pretty dang solid, but that is not good enough to be one of your choices. Up next, we have Numera, who is a lot better than pretty dang solid. I'm going to put her at tier 1. If I was putting this in order, she might be at the top here. Her single target magic DPS is unbelievable. She is the absolute heart of the poison meta comp. She is completely amazing. If you have a good amount of these support units, if you don't need a Kza or Hotsit because you have them, or you maybe have an ancient exclusive unit that can fill that job, then definitely you can be targeting Numera. Her burst is crazy, her dot damage is crazy, her explosion is crazy. She has a very good and underrated magic reduction debuff she places against enemies. Numera is completely awesome. And I also think a lot of people sleep on her dual faction membership in Starpiercers. Especially for progression, that makes her a lot more relevant. Numera is amazing. Nyx now is going to go in tier 2. She ties Kai as the best AoE marksman in the game. For pure damage, Nyx is better. For damage plus additional utility, like Kai's passive and his traps, Kai is better. They both need to be here, but I'd say for pure DPS, Nyx is superior, obviously. She also has some of the best awakenings in the game, and she has one of the best exclusive artifacts in the game. Aurum is in desperate need of a buff. He is a joke. Razok is completely mediocre. His damage is pretty good, but compared to Nyx and Kai, he's obviously not on their level. Regulus, very solid tank, but very solid tank does not make you a choice for a banner like this. There is no shot in heck. We're going a lot faster now. Sadi, she's obviously going to be tier 2. If you need her for Gear A2, she is the best person you could have for, in my opinion, the best comp in the game. But also Gear A2 Stage 24 is the easiest of the Stage 24s. So she's a good pick, but she's a niche pick, similar to someone like Kai, I would say. She's very solid, but you're really picking her for one specific thing. She should only be picked if, like, you have everything else and you just, for some reason, are hard stuck there. But I think almost no one's going to pick her. She's borderline don't choose. Salazar is a very easy don't choose, which is crazy to say. When this game came out, Salazar was like one of the best, maybe for certain things, the best hero in the game, and he's just not relevant right now. He is who they should have buffed, not Arrogance. I mean, Arrogance, yes, has he fallen off a little bit? Without a doubt. Does he need a buff? No shot. Arrogance is still freaking awesome. Like, completely and utterly awesome. You're going to see my Arrogance testing video coming out in just a couple days. He's putting up over 200 million damage in Guild Boss 1 Nightmare 4. And that's at A4. Wait until you see me test him at A5. It's just, I don't get it. Like, Salazar has completely fallen off and he's been completely neglected. But bye-bye, Salazar. No one should choose you. Seline, absolutely no one. I'll give a shout out to the fact that if you have her and Giselle, she then earns the ability to land the most powerful magic damage vulnerability in the game. But that is a really specific thing and a really specific situation, and it's not 100% uptime, and who cares? Seline is not usable. She will need a buff as well. Seraphina is a completely mediocre single target mage, and as you can see with people like Glacius, who are good single target mages, they didn't even make tier 2, so obviously Seraphina will fall into don't choose. Cetrum, without a doubt, is going to be tier 2. He's kind of the definition of tier 2. Very, very good niche hero. For general progression, he is viable, but he's particularly good against shields and where you need multi-hit. For the Styx boss and Codex, he's phenomenal. And then obviously his claim to fame is Guild Boss 1. That claim to fame had kind of dwindled. It had become less relevant as after basically with the current state of the game, Nightmare 4 has become really underpowered and you can beat it in so many ways with so many different heroes. But with the introduction of Abyss 1, he is really meta once again. Cetrum's ability to help break shields in Abyss 1 and honestly single-handedly solo the first 2 physical damage shields is amazing. And then on top of that, at A1, he gives the shield breaker buff to the 2 allies with the highest attack in your comp. So that makes for later in the battle, your 2 best fighters basically a lot more viable. So your Sun Wukong and your Kagiri, for example, it is really relevant, though it is specific. Shamir is not relevant in the game right now. Silas is phenomenal. He is borderline tier 0. And this is what I'm going to tell you. If you have Virna, then I would say Silas still is tier 0. If you're missing Silas and Virna, but you just want to pick up your copy, he's tier 1. And without Virna, he's gonna be tier 2. Frankly, maybe even don't choose. But because he's so good with Virna, and if you already have Virna, he would be a tier 0 choice. The end of tier 0, but definitely tier 0. I think we're going to put him in tier 1, because even if you don't have her, picking up your Silas so he's ready when you do get her is a good move. And I think people are sleeping on Bonded Silas nowadays. And he is so good for so much content. He's so good for temporary content. Whenever there is a new, event boss or event gear raid, something like that, Silas always dominates. He is still excellent. Now we've got Talon. Talon is borderline tier 2, but I am going to put her in tier 1 just because of the flexibility she brings with dual faction membership in 2 amazing factions and with 2 distinct forms. She can be a very good tank with some damage and knockback. She also can be a platformer with amazing damage. Depending on her form, she also has really good functionality with things like Dispel and stuns. I think Talon is just phenomenal. Now we've got Tallulah. She is borderline tier 2, but I am going to put her in don't choose. If you have have everything for her. She's a lot more relevant nowadays, but having her exclusive artifact with promotions and having her exclusive gear and having good gear for her and then still having the patience for her random moments of bad RNG, I do not think it's worth it, and she's not really meta relevant for anything, so Tula will go into don't choose. Trusk, kind of the same story as Crowdor. Very good tank, but that is not going to cut it. Twyla is a phenomenal DPS. She's going to be tier 2. If you do not have Sun Wukong and Kagiri with Awakenings, she is definitively tier 1. If you're missing both, she's like borderline tier 0. Twyla is completely awesome. She is still the best non-ancient exclusive and non-limited fighter in the game for sheer DPS, or I should at least say physical damage fighter. For single target, I'd put Numera above her, and overall, I'd obviously put Kza above her. But she's pretty awesome. Regardless, we'll put her tier 2 just because she is outclassed by those limiteds, but it's really just those limiteds and then like some ancient exclusive situations. Valyriia, I was about to squeak into tier 2, but I am going to put her in don't choose. Hear me out. She is the best solution in the game for the left side of Gear Dungeon 2, but that's only for one strat, and there are other ways to solve it, obviously, so she's not necessary. And outside of that, with all the new fighters in the game, all the power creep we've seen, as good as she is, she's just not relevant. Or if they just make it so she doesn't explode after taking lethal damage at any point of her ultimate, the way she used to work, then she might be bumped up. Actually, she definitely would be bumped up to tier 2, but as it stands now, yeah, no way. Now we've got Virna. Virna is for sure tier 1, just like Silas. I would actually say when it comes to Silas and Virna, without a bond skill, Virna is definitely the better hero nowadays. She is really relevant for a lot of things. Her execution has aged extremely well. She has one of the best exclusive pieces of gear in the game. She definitely has one of the best exclusive artifacts in the game, and she's just really cool. And she's going to be even more relevant once again with the new Matrix boss. She dominates there. Now another tier 1, this is going to be Vaughn. He is really underrated. Yes, his most common use is a bit specific. He's one of the main facilitators of the very popular poison comp. However, even outside of that, or just running him as a marksman on a piercer comp, the damage is really good. There's a lot of good utility in his kit. His shield breaker passive that he has already without awakenings is good. It only gets better at A1, and then he gets the bump from basically being someone who would have been in tier 2 to tier 1 because of how relevant he is in those poison comps. Zarus is going to be tier 2. He's borderline don't choose, but people do sleep on his burst damage, and it is incredible. And I just have to give Zarus a shout out. It's crazy, especially if you have him A1 and if you have his exclusive gear. The amount of damage he can deal in bursts is basically unmatched in this game. Maybe the only one who comes close is going to be Zena. Zena is even a bit more niche than Zarus, though. She is not bad. She's one of the better units in this don't choose group, but still, she is not someone you should be choosing. I'm going to go to Zelatu now. We're going to save Zealous for the end. Zelatu is also kind of the definition of don't choose. She's one of the best units in this group, kind of a Valkyria situation. The game has just passed her by. Infernal does not need her anymore. She's not a great facilitator. The best situation is not to run a Pyros or a Twin Fiend. It is to run a Soul Cadence. Otherwise, you're probably going to run an entirely different faction. And her DPS is awesome, but it is not top tier. And it's not really top tier for anything anymore. So shockingly, unbelievably, Zelatu is going to be a don't choose. And even more shockingly, Zealous is going to be tier 2. This Zealous buff is so good, guys. I can't wait to show him off in some content. He is really, really, really good in Gear Raid 1. He is really good in Gear Dungeon 1. And he is excellent in the new Matrix boss. Is he top tier at all? No. But somehow did he make it into the same tier as Magda and Arrogance? Somehow he in fact did. Should I have probably split tier 2 into a tier 2 and a tier 3, or a tier 1.5 and a tier 2? Looking at it now, absolutely. But I think we explained everything well. I hope you guys understood everything. If you agree with me, let me know below. If you disagree, let me know below. And if you have any further questions before you make your final decision on your choice divine summoning tomorrow, let me know in the comment section below. I've been Fastidious. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Mitchell for editing this video. Share with your mother, guys, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.